I have with me Yvonne Wassenaar from Airware, CEO of Airware. I have Jessica Richman from uBiome, and I have Tracy DiNunzio from Tradesy. So guys, let's start on a positive note here. We have all the stats on diversity and female diversity. Why is now a particularly good time to be a female in startup land?
I'll start. I think there's, the opening was a great foundation. I netted out to three things. I believe there's never been a greater need. And when I say that, I mean in terms of the research that shows many women, they give and they sacrifice and they do these really hard jobs and conquer these mountains for a purpose. The purpose is really twofold right now. One is to create the role models to demonstrate the possible. And so you're not just taking on these roles for yourself, but for the future that comes behind you. But also, as technology seeps into all aspects of our life, I deeply believe we need a higher level of social consciousness and perspective around those leadership tables, ensuring that we're using technology for good and for the betterment of society. And I don't think there's a higher calling, particularly for women leaders, than that, to make a difference. The third thing is, you're the best skilled to do the job, because in today's fast-paced environment, collaboration, partnership, different perspective, bringing people together versus spreading them apart has never been more important for success. So it's going to make the biggest difference. It does have purpose, and you're all incredibly talented and prepared for the job.
Wow, that's amazing. No, I would definitely echo all of those points, and I would just say, in addition, that I think that it's always hard to be an entrepreneur. It's never a good time to start a company in kind of the grand scheme of things, but the world needs entrepreneurs, like you said. The world really needs female entrepreneurs for a number of reasons, partly because of the societal effects of that, partly because of specific skills and aptitudes that we may have because of the way we were raised and because of the way we were born. But I would say further than that, there's this kind of personal experience that you get from being an entrepreneur. There are certain hard things about hard things that you don't learn unless you walk this path. And doing that changes you into a person who has those experiences, who can then give them to the next generation and help them to learn how to walk those paths as well.
And how many people in here, how many female entrepreneurs are in the room? Will you guys tell us if you're, okay, awesome. Amazing. So when I was just getting started, which was already almost 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of this. And it was hard to see role models for women that were succeeding in tech or in business in general and as entrepreneurs. And it was hard to find women who were doing that and could also become mentors. And so you are in a golden age of female entrepreneurship, because you have a generation that is reaching out to you and that really wants to support you. I know here in LA next Tuesday, we're doing female founder office hours. Eva Ho and Karen Nortman, and I'm probably forgetting someone, are leading that effort. All across the country and in different cities, female founders are coming together and saying, we want to reach out and support you guys and give you the kind of access to information and mentorship that we might not have had when we started out. So it's your time. We're all excited to cheer you on and watch you shine.
That's great. Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, because the whole point of this panel is how do you build a successful company? So Yvonne, you're a CEO first at Airware, but impressive, you're on 3 boards, 2 public. I think lots of us could argue that probably makes you a better CEO. Can you elaborate on why you chose to take part in the boards and how it's helped you become a leader?
Definitely. I first got interested in board work back to that concept of social consciousness and moving the needle. I think having diverse boards actually helps you create diverse leadership teams and helps you attract diverse talent. And so my inspiration really was to make a dent in that room, and that's what led me to pursue board service. My first board was a private company, uBiome. It was based here in Santa Monica. Had great sponsorship getting on the board, and it was a fabulous learning experience. I'm an enterprise expert. I've spent 17 years at Accenture, 4 years at VMware. I went and helped take New Relic public, but to get exposure and, quite frankly, to learn a lot of the skills I apply now as a CEO of a private company, I learned from that board, from that CEO firsthand how they manage the challenges. So it was a great way to give back on how they could be successful in enterprise and for me to learn. Similarly, the public company boards I'm on, I do think it's the best source of education. It is amazing. The CEO job is super hard, and you don't know it until you're there. And so to be able to work with other CEOs, see things that they might see, and to get back from them, I find board work incredibly enriching. It brings that diversity of perspective. It lets me see things from a different angle. I always leave every board meeting coming back with a new idea for my own company. So I find it synergistic. One word of caution, don't oversubscribe yourself. I use the red thread. I basically only serve on boards that have direct correlation to the industry I'm in, my expertise, so I get those synergies. Don't join a board to be on a board. Join a board because you have passion and it gives back as much as you give to it.
Thank you. So Jessica, different angle here. You're Stanford PhD, Fulbright, Oxford. I'm sure there are other scientists and academics in the room. Can you talk about, you came to startup land without even an interlude in industry. So how was it starting a company when you were coming fresh from academia?
That's a really good question. Yeah, so I had done some internships in undergrad, and I had worked, but I hadn't ever been in this kind of role and in a company at all of these different stages. And it's interesting, when you first start a company, it's just a few of you in a room, you just do everything. And what's more important than any kind of company experience is just pure passion and pure just figuring out what needs to get done and doing it. And it's more about like staying alive than it is about working at a job. But as your company grows, our company is 200 people now, so it's like a real company. And that means that there's, it operates, we have HR and we have procedures and policies and all sorts of things that make it much more like I'm running much more like working at a job, and also being responsible for 200 other people's jobs and making sure that they're good jobs and that they like them and that they get the information that they need and they pass it back. So I think what I've had to do is kind of think about the company in various size stages and think about what's most optimal for that size stage. At the stages we've been at and at the stages we're going to be at as we go further in the future, and think about what that size of the company needs. Because when you're 5 people, you don't need a lot of procedures, and when you're 500 people, if you don't have procedures, your company will fall apart. So it's been a lot of kind of thinking through and frankly learning from people who are at companies at those sizes, what are the appropriate amounts of culture building, systematization, things like that, because there's a balance between having great systems and having systems get in your way, and you're always trying to balance what those levels are. So I think it's learning from each of those size stages what's appropriate, and then making sure you do your best to really have best-in-class systems, and you're creating good jobs for people at each of those sizes.
Thank you. Tracy, at the earliest stages, you've talked a lot about how founders you're not just born a CEO. You're not a CEO until you've sort of like earned the right to be CEO. And you went through this, founder and CEO. Can you talk about like when you felt like you were CEO?
I mean, most days I still don't feel like I've earned the CEO title, but sure, yeah. I think when you're a founding CEO, so first of all, I called myself the CEO from the day we launched, as should you, when it was just me, myself, and I was doing customer service with this phone and marketing with that phone. I was still the CEO while I was the CMO and the head of customer service. So call yourself that. But I do think that there's a transition, and Jessica, you were speaking to this, right, where when you're a founder, your main role in the world is to fight against the odds, be super scrappy, and inspire everyone you touch, whether it's prospective investors, team members, et cetera, to see the vision that you see for the future. And as you grow and you gain employees and shareholders, that's when you really become a chief executive officer, right? There are people around you, and their dollars and their careers are dependent upon the decisions you make. And that carries a certain weight, and it's very important to respect that weight. So I think that, for me at least, the transition from founder to CEO came when I got those responsibilities and started to really contend with the gravity of that and how important it was for me to be thoughtful in my decisions and honor that. So if your path looks like mine, the transition you'll make from founder to CEO will involve a lot of examination of how to be more thoughtful when making a lot of decisions that affect a lot of people, which you often have to make on a short timeline and with little information. So that's an experience that I wish for all of you to have. That for me is what the transformation from founder to CEO looked like. And by the way, while you're learning that, you also have to continue inspiring everybody with that vision. So it's a big job. I think many of you in this room are going to navigate it just fine. But that's what it felt like to me to transition from founder to CEO.
Yeah, and there are multiple paths to CEO, and some of you in this room may not have the founding idea, but you may aspire to CEO. So Yvonne, I pose to you, I mean, as a non-founder CEO, sort of how did you find yourself in CEO position at Airware, and what are the pros, cons of being the non-founding member?
I loved hearing your story. I am not a founder. And I say that with like real self-realization. Like I remember, I was looking to leave VMware. I wanted to get on some smaller company boards, and somebody said, Yvonne, you're the smartest person I know. I'd never put you on my board. I'm like, why would you say that? Like, you know nothing at all about startups, raising money, any of that. And so I started exploring, and I remember being at Andreessen, talking to this wonderful woman who ran talent. And I really, like, we thought the world of each other, and we were so on the same page. She was like, you're amazing, Yvonne. And she like paused, and I said, and I know, I don't want to work 4 guys in a garage. Like, I'm not a guy, and I don't want to be 4 girls in a garage. Like, that's not my thing. That's not my skill set. I've spent 25 plus years in enterprise and complex businesses, scaling companies around the globe. And I have tremendous respect for all of you in the room, like listening to your stories, to go in when it's just you, and it's just you and a couple of people, and you're fighting the odds. I have tremendous respect for that. I've worked for amazing founders, like Lucerni at New Relic is phenomenal. But I also know my strengths. And so I was actually brought into Airware to help the founder scale the company. And he's an amazing guy, a brilliant aerospace engineer out of MIT. And we were looking at the company, and the company's taken some pivots, and we're about 100 employees, and we've got a lot of shareholders, and we've got, we bought a company in Paris, we've got global organization and all these complexities. And one day he looked at me and he said, Yvonne, as I think about where the company's going in its next chapter, I'm realizing, for as much as I love this company, you and I share this vision, because man, I have that passion. He's like, and he's like, this is one of the most emotional decisions of my life, but I'd like you to interview to be the CEO. And it was one of the most humbling experiences for me, because here's this guy who's given 8 years of his life fighting the odds, and he's entrusting to me, board approved, that to take the company to the next level. And so what I would say is I really took that to heart, and I really had to do a lot of self-examination. Like, do I believe in the face of, all odds against me? Yes, I do. And so the first thing I'd say is founders become CEOs because of their passion and they grow into it. Don't go and take over from a founder because you want to be CEO. It is the hardest damn job you will ever have. And if you don't have that passion, don't do it for the title. It's not worth it. It's not worth any of that. But if you have the passion, the brilliant thing that I found was I could enter at my sweet spot. I could enter in when there was that level of complexity of, shareholders and global organizations and big Fortune 500 companies who needed certain things, where I could provide that vision where, to your point, you're making decisions in minutes without tons of McKinsey decks, and you have to rely on your gut feel. Like I had that. So the big pro of taking over as CEO is you can find your sweet spot in complexity. I'd say the challenge is you have to find within yourself that passion to lead through thick and thin, to motivate everybody across this larger company without having that founder story. So you have to find what your real true story is that's motivational, that's inspiring. And you have to be really respectful in that transition. You're being picked to run a company because you're going to do things differently. You have to remember that somebody gave their life and soul to create what you're taking on, and to always deeply respect that. And I feel really lucky that I have a good relationship with the founder of Airware, that we've been able to navigate that journey. But it is hard, and I think it deserves a lot of respect. And God bless all of the founders in the audience. I am not worthy. Just saying.
Yeah.
So Jessica, as a founder, I mean, you have navigated.
You're very worthy. Let's just say that. We can move on to other questions, but you're very worthy. Don't even say that. Go on.
No, you've navigated a ton of complexity. Just uBiome, you've got the biome piece, the science piece, the big data, the consumer, logistics and shipping. How have you have to be an expert in all of those. Like, how have you balanced the interplay of all?
It's a really good question. One of the challenging things about uBiome, and I didn't know this was a challenging thing about uBiome, because when we started it, we thought, the microbiome are the trillions of microorganisms that live on and in all of us. There was, at the time, no way for the average person to learn about their microbiome. So our initial thought founding the company was, let's provide a way for people to do that, and we did that initially for consumers. And we didn't realize, of course, it would scale into all these other things that it now is, which are way more complex. Now we have tests for doctors and their patients. We have operations in several countries. Like it's very complex, the sort of complexity level that you were talking about. And I think the trick is you can't be an expert at all of these things. Like that's definitely not possible. And everyone says this because it's true. You need to hire people who are experts in those specific areas. But I find that one of the things that is a strength of myself as a founder, and maybe of the executives as well that are, at the seat, they're come at the CEO level and can kind of take on this startup task, is to be really good at asking questions and wanting to learn. I've always been very nerdy and very excited about learning. And one of the things that I do when I don't know about an area is I go on Amazon and I buy like 5 books on whatever it is. Right now it's growth equity investing that I'm reading about. So I literally bought 5 books on growth equity investing. So, I go in and I learn about it, and I also ask really good questions, right? So you just ask, why are we doing it this way versus that way? Very politely, but very clearly, like, so does it work like this? So does it work like that? And, you can find that in a short period of time, if you ask the right questions, you can kind of get to the heart of the matter. And then after that, it's common sense in a lot of ways. But I think that that kind of key skill of trying to figure out what's really going on, and getting through kind of the fog of things that people say because they think they're supposed to say them, or things that people say because they think that it's what you want to hear, is really, really important. One of the things that I've been facing recently is, as the company size grows, people treat you like the adult and they give you the adult answer. They don't give you like the kid answer, which is like, yeah, I screwed up, sorry. They give you the adult answer, which is, yes, there were all these great, amazing reasons why this happened. So I think one really key skill is to really kind of bond with people and develop trust so that they tell you what really happened, and then you move on from that and you fix it or whatever needs to happen. But I think that limits having those habits of learning and those habits of just being honest and relating to people like people, limits complexity a lot because you can kind of get to the truth much more quickly.
So Tracy, we could throw a rock at your office in Santa Monica right here.
Please don't.
Yeah.
People have, we don't like it when that happens.
I mean, there's probably the lore that like you can only build big companies in San Francisco. Yeah. So if your next company came about, like HQ Santa Monica, HQ LA, pros, cons, like have you ever had the urge to move up to San Francisco?
Oh gosh. So building a company in LA is hard. Building a company anywhere is hard. some of the unique challenges in LA, I would say, or the unique challenge would be access to mid and late stage capital. There are a lot of really good, really well-respected early stage firms here. Shout out to Bonfire Ventures and Fika Ventures if you want high integrity investors. Those are just a few of mine that I appreciate so much that are local here. But once you get to the later stages and you're trying to raise those monster rounds, there are fewer funds here in LA that you can talk to. And so what ends up happening is as a CEO, you and perhaps your executive team are traveling a lot to reach those investors. You don't have the organic relationships that other companies might have because you don't see them at the social events all the time. And so I would say, for me, that was a grind. It wore me out personally to be back and forth to New York and San Fran all the time raising money while also trying to run the company here. And that was the biggest challenge. But talent, we've got it for miles. Don't let anyone tell you we don't have good engineers. We have great engineers. We have 4 schools that are pumping out excellent engineers. We have companies that are training up data scientists and technologists. We have an amazing, diverse group of people for all kinds of jobs. And so I would say it's really just the access to capital. Can I say on another note, it's so you can... There's a lot to be said about, the good and the bad of kind of separating out women for panels about women. But one thing you get on these panels that I love and appreciate from you guys so much is you get a lot of honesty about what this journey is really like, and a lot less of the what, we're just crushing it all the time. So I really appreciate women in general and the women on this panel for being honest about this is a hard job y'all are signing up for. Totally worth it, totally hard. And
I'm just going to chime in one thing.
Yeah.
So I'm based in San Francisco. I live in San Francisco. I'm very close to Sand Hill Road. I'm raising money. It's a grind.
It's a grind no matter what.
Wherever you are.
It is. It's a grind.
Talent's
no matter
great down here. I went to school down here. The weather's beautiful down here. Don't give up on Southern California. It's getting a little crowded in San Francisco. It's a grind, wherever you're raising money.
Yes, that is true.
I'm coming back here. I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on that, guys, I think no one succeeds alone. So you guys all have your posse of support that you've built over time. Can each of you just sort of touch on how you've built your posse, where the people have come from, and how it's helped you get to where you are today?
So I turned a female weakness into a strength, and one of my weaknesses was I worked really hard, and I thought that would get me to where I wanted to go. So I've been working over 25 years in this space, and I literally was working so hard all the time. And then I have 3 young kids. Well, they're not so young anymore. My oldest is turning 13. My twins are 10. But I was pretty busy. And I remember one of my guy friends, when I was bemoaning not getting promoted to senior vice president, he looked at me and he goes, Yvonne, I always get the same thing. You're one of the smartest people. And it's never a good thing that follows that. It was and nobody knows who you are, so quit crying on my shoulder that you're not getting this, that, and the other. Go out and network. And he really taught me that networking isn't an after job thing, because I went into, but I've got 3 young kids, and he's like, Yvonne, go at 10 o'clock in the morning and have coffee with the people at Andreessen. And I'm like, it's like my Catholic guilt. I'm not even Catholic. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm supposed to be working. I'm supposed to be checking off the to-do list. And so I ultimately started doing that. And what I found was 2 things. One, I had built up a tremendous reputation of being somebody who delivered results. So that's where I say my weakness was my strength, is that I had incredible integrity with who I was, what I had learned. I was like you. If I didn't know it, I learned it. And so I had that foundation, and word kind of got around. But then I learned that networking, which I was always kind of nervous about, wasn't an extracurricular activity. It was part of my job. And so what I found was, I network, so it's easier for me to hire people. It's easier for me to get access to information. It's easier for me to do this. to the point when I became CEO and I started raising money, one of my board members, like Yvonne, he's like, it is amazing. He goes, I mean, I know a lot of people that people like everybody loves you. And they don't even like, and it's just, but it comes out of that reputation you build. And so I think women are deeply well positioned because of the integrity of the work effort they put in, but you have to sprinkle in that networking to get credit for it. But if you do that, I think it's really powerful, and that's how I've built my sponsorship.
Wow, that's really great. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I've learned kind of as the company grows, it's less about doing the thing and so much more about having everyone else do something, to the point where I feel like I don't do a lot of work anymore. What I do is a lot of leveraging other people's work and moving other people's jobs around and kind of rearranging things. And I think that is what that means, is that you have to kind of build that reputation and support and network within the company as well as outside the company. And I would say in terms of your posse of supporters, I feel like one of the advantages that we have at uBiome is a really tight executive team. Almost all of us are internal to the company, have been with us a long time. And there's a certain kind of level of trust where I feel like we're kind of interchangeable in some ways, which is really nice, and a kind of a, and they call this consensus. I've heard that there's like this, tension between being consensus-driven and moving fast. But I think you can do both. If you are very like-minded and agree on a lot of values, you can be fast and consensus-driven, which is something I think we do very, very successfully. I think what's great about that is that you don't waste a lot of time infighting among your team. What you do is you spend time evangelizing from your executive team to everyone else and then receiving information back. So I'd say in terms of how to build that, I think there's no substitute for just meeting the people, like you said, or internally, for just really bonding with people and getting to know what they want, getting to know how you can help them get there. And also an alignment of values. Hiring is really important to this. It's hard to have a posse of people that you don't really like or really agree with on fundamental things. So if you hire for people that you like working with, that you are in agreement about sort of what your purpose is in life, what you're trying to do in the world, it really makes a lot of that easier. For example, at uBiome, we have a no asshole rule. We just do not hire assholes. There are plenty of brilliant assholes in the world, and they can go work somewhere else. They don't work here. So I think things like that really make it simple to find common ground, and then to have your posse, to have your like-minded group of people that can then go do great things in the world.
I know we're short on time, so I'll make it a quick one. So you need to also build a posse of investors and advisors, and they're going to be important people, and they're going to be crunched for time. And you're going to have to make every moment count with them and show them progress. First, you're going to have to fight to get their attention for a first meeting, and then anytime you get their attention subsequently, you should be prepared to show them progress, and progress that somehow relates to the advice that they gave you last time. It's an important thing, like demonstrating that you value the advice that they shared. Even if you ignored it, show how you considered it and discarded it in favor of another approach. That's fine too. And as I have a mentee now who's starting a company, and what I tell him is, every time you show up, be a fucking delight to hang out with. And because you need the people who have leverage in your industry to start advocating for you and believing in you. And their days are stressful, they're busy, they have important things to contend with. So show up prepared and delightful.
I love that.
Thank you. Well, that's the end. If I can get another round of applause for the three of them for taking time out of their day today.